Hi guys, Sam from Walkgate Studio. How you doing? Today I'm doing the second part of a two-parter in bases from Huge Miniatures, and I'm gonna do let me grab the base here, a base that is more summery, springtime, with a little bit of awesomeness thrown in, with some wood there, some texture from the tufts, a little bit of static grass on there, and some flowers and some other bits in there. So yeah, I'm going to crack on and kind of show you what we're using. So the base textures on this are two different types of texture paste from Huge Miniatures. One of them's dirt, one of them's mud. Really like varying up my my soil basically and into mingling these. So when these dry, believe it or not, there isn't that much difference between them. They're kind of very similar, so it's even better for mixing because it actually just gives you a nice variation in your soil. So we're going to be starting with those. I'm going to be throwing in, you might have seen this on another video of mine, urban rubble from Huge Miniatures, and it's basically just some rocks. I'm going to be putting these on there as some rocks and kind of showing you how to change these from the black to a little bit more of a less stark color on some other bases. And then finally we're going to be using some of this material called Woodland 4-in-1 scatter from Huge Miniatures. So this has got some really good wood textures in here, little bits of wood. It's got some static grass in here as well, and some like sponge, some flock in here as well. So we're going to be using kind of all of that on this base just to give it that sort of spring summery vibe, and as you can see, it all works kind of nicely in the finished product. So without further ado, I'm going to crack on. I'm going to grab my Huge Minis spatula again, texture spatula, and I'm going to mix these two, mud and dirt, onto this base. I've got another 40mm Games Workshop base that I'm going to just slap on some texture. I'm going to do half and half and then kind of show you how nicely these mingle into each other. So I'm going to kind of take some of this off in a minute because I put a little bit too much on. And again, super simple with this spatula to kind of do stuff with. And then we're going to work on this, just smush this up a little bit, make sure the coverage is completely there, and then maybe a little bit more. Excellent. Okay, yeah, I'm literally going to do a line down this base to kind of show you how nicely these two textures kind of intermingle with each other as well. Okay, so that's the mud texture. It's a nice bright yellowy kind of mud, and then we've got the dirt texture, which is a little bit darker. And once again, I'm just going to grab my spatula, put it into the paper towel, and it comes away clean, and you can start on another texture. So yeah, I'm gonna grab some of this, and you see it goes on very, very dark, but it dries very, very similarly to the other one right next to it. So I'm just gonna smush this into here, and we're gonna have a defined line straight away down the middle of here to kind of intermingle these two in. Beautiful. Okay, so that is going to be my base. This all smushes down nicely and creates a nice, natural feel once we're done. And this is one of the reasons why I love this texture paste now to do bases with. It's very easy to do very nice looking bases, and yeah, super happy with that. While this is drying, I'm going to grab some of the Woodland 4-in-1 scatter, and I'm actually going to grab some of the wood out of this. So there's some little bits of wood that they provide that are part of the Woodland scatter that I absolutely love. I love the fact that they've got different textures in here for us to play with on our bases. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of wood out there. And this is the only thing that I'm going to be doing while waiting for this to base. So I'm going to grab a rock in a second as well, I'm going to put some of this, get some of that flock off. Don't want that on there just yet. Put a little bit of wood. Beautiful. Okay, and then I'm going to grab some of the urban rubble. So even though it says urban rubble, I'm going to use this as a rock or two for our base. So I'm just going to stick one on there, and then another one over here. Beautiful. Okay, so that's as far as I'm going to go while waiting for it to dry. Once it's dry, I'll come back and show you how we kind of get some paint on there and how we can kind of finish it all off. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so the base is dry. As you can see, there isn't much of a difference between the dark side here and the light side, the two different types of the paste, the dirt and the mud textures. One is slightly darker, which is the dirt, and then the mud is slightly lighter, but they work really well. So I'm very happy with the way this come out. Now at the moment this looks very, you know, all over the place with the wood textures, just a little bit different from the rocks and all those sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some colors with the airbrush, and I'm just going to get some colors put on there just to change the color a little bit on there and give it a nice feel for bringing it all together, because at the moment they're all a little bit too all over the place. So I'm just going to run a little bit of color through, and you'll be able to kind of see this all come together a little bit more. So I've just got some light umber from Pro Acryl, and I'm just going to give this a little bit of a coat just to kind of bring these together. I still want some of those textures and those browns, but I'm going to give the black a little bit of a browny colour, just to sort of start tying them all into each other. The wood I'm going to actually hand paint in a bit and give them a little bit more, but I'm just going to start bringing in the natural wood kind of colours. So that's the light umber. I'm also going to do some dark umber on this as well. So I'm just going to wash that out. There you go. Okay, so that's the light umber done, and then I'm going to go and give a few spots of dark umber now on here, just to give it a little bit more variation. Wash that out a little bit before I put some dark umber, and this is going to be Pro Acryl dark umber. And I'm just going to put a drop of this in there. A little bit darker. And while this is wet, I'm just going to hit the areas that are a little bit darker, just to give this a little bit of variation for when it's dried. I'm going to get a little bit around the rocks. Awesome. Okay, so I'm just giving that a little bit on there. Happy with that. Just to give the dirt a little bit of variation in colour, which you can kind of do. You can leave the dirt and the mud colours themselves from Huge Minis. That's fine as well. But I just wanted to tie everything in with some different coloured rocks and those sorts of things. So we're good with that. And then what I'm going to do now is just switch this out, give my airbrush a little bit of a clean. Always important to do whenever you let the paint settle in the airbrushes, they will not be good. So plenty of brown now coming out, and I'm going to pour the rest of that out as well. Still tons of brown coming out, so one more clean. and then we can put this away because we don't need the airbrush anymore. The rest of it I'm going to be hand painting and also dry brushing. So I'm going to be getting the dry brush stuff out, and we'll be good to go. So just bear with me a second, and then I will, yeah, there you go, all nice and clear. Beautiful. Okay, airbrush is cleaned out. I'm happy with that. I can give that a better clean off camera in a minute. Okay, so that's the browns there themselves. The next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a mahogany from Pro Acryl, which is just a bit of a redder color, and I'm going to hand brush some of the paints, some of the bits of wood that are on the model, on the base itself. So anything that's on there, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a coat of mahogany color, just to distinguish the wood a little bit differently from anything else. So you can kind of see this is just a little bit of a darker brown, and this is a bit of wood as well that's just randomly fallen in the forest type thing. So we're good with that. Excellent. So I'm going to let that go. So you can start seeing it all being tied together a little bit now, apart from this huge patch of brown that I've been washing out my airbrush with. Let me grab a new bit of white and show you how this base is looking. Okay, there we go. So you can kind of see the mahogany bits of wood. The rocks now are of a similar color to the dirt. You can put some washes on here and kind of go crazy with some other stuff, which is cool. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to grab some of that mahogany color and some of the dirt color while that's still drying, and give it a little bit of a dry brush. I'm probably going to let this dry a little bit more so it's fully dry before I go back and do the dry brushing, because otherwise it's going to smush a little bit. So I'll jump back on camera for the last piece of this video and do all the dry brushing and get some of these gorgeous colored flowers put on, as well as some tufts and some of those other things, and get it looking like this. Okay, so the base is now dry, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building up some dry brush layers on this base. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the light umber, which is what I put on there to start with, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this and just give this a really good dry brush over everything to start working on those layers. We're going to start building up those browns, and you can kind of start seeing that we can sort of start getting some of that dark color coming through, as I gave them a very, very light amount on the airbrush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white on my palette, and I'm going to put a little bit of that light umber in there, and I'm going to grab my dry brush palette, which is off screen. If you've never seen a dry brush palette, this is kind of my dry brush palette. It's just got textures on there, and I can work off most of the paint off of my brush, my dry brush, and then get the perfect amount ready to go. And I normally check by just doing a little bit on my hand. There's not that much left on there, and then I can start picking out bits on here ready to go. And you'll start seeing that it's picking out some of those highlighted areas on there, and starting to get a little bit more definition on the base, which is awesome. So that's the first thing we're going to do, and then we're also going to do a little bit more, an even brighter one as a kind of final dry brush. Again, I'm just using my dry brush palette off screen, and just using my finger to pick out the highest parts of the model. And don't worry, you're going over the wood in a second, but I'm just giving this a nice dry brush over. Okay, so we've seen that we're kind of building this this kind of this feeling. What with this, the difference between this one and the one that I've done previously, I was actually mixing bone into this dry brush to give it a kind of summery vibe. This one's a little bit darker, as you can kind of see the difference between the two. So a good variation just in the dry brush levels for each of them as well. But yeah, I'm kind of happy with this as a nice kind of rich foresty kind of style base. So I'm going to kind of go through all of the last bits that I do now. I'm just going to wash out my dry brush and get that cleaned up. So that's important part of everything we do, is making sure everything is clean and washed and good to go. Back again, nice clean brush from Artist Opus. Thanks to those guys, appreciate that. So yeah, we've just got the last bits now of the mahogany, and so I've still got a little bit of that on my palette, and I'm going to grab an old brush and just get a little bit of that mahogany color so that I can start picking out the mahogany just a little bit differently from the rest of the model, just to give that a little bit of a different kind of highlight, just a little bit more redder on the wood, just to make the wood pop a little bit more than the dirt, just to give it again a little bit of another texture in there, another little bit of variation on the model. And you can kind of hopefully see that on there. It's just a little something just to catch your eye, that there's something a little bit different on there with the wood. So awesome. And then yeah, you could work up and do a little even more. You could grab a little bit more on the palette and just flick some of the edges and get some of that wood on there, just looking a little bit different. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Just a little bit of texture on there. Stone's good, wood's good. Now I get to play with some of the fun stuff from Huge Minis. So as far as different products that I've got to play with on here, we have the 2 sets of flowers. So I've got some blue flowers, and I've got also some white flowers, and I'm also going to go back to the Woodland 4-in-1 scatter that they do as well at Huge Minis. This one here, love this one. So we're going to use that as well on here, and then we're pretty much oh no, I have got some tufts as well, so I'm going to grab some of the tufts and use some of that, because this is going to be a summery one. I'm going to grab a kind of a nice light one, and then maybe one of the darker ones. So we'll see, just some verdant different greens on there. We've got some greens from in here, as well as some scatter flock in here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the tufts on first, then I'm going to use a little bit of this to finish it off, and we'll go from there. So the first thing first, again, super glue. I actually like the Ultra Gel from Loctite. It's a bit thicker and it is less of a crazy run, and I'm just going to pop it into one of the little crevices where we're going to get our flowers. I'm going to grab a blue flower. Let's just grab one on the edge. This one will do. And then we're going to stick it straight in on the base, straight in there, and we're going to make sure we push it down, making sure we don't knock off any of the flock or anything like that. Awesome. And super happy with the blue one. I'm going to put a white one on here as well. We're going to put a white one on the over here. So dab of super glue gel, grab a white one. I think there's a rock that I just smushed in there. Yeah. Make sure that there's nothing in there to inhibit you popping it in. And I'm going to pop the flower on there. And I'm actually going to grab another little tool of mine, just a little sculpting tool, just to smush these down and get these nicely glued on. So there we go with the flowers, looking pretty good. Really, really like the variation, all of the different colors. I could have put 5 or 6 different colors on here, but I'm trying to keep it in sort of some sort of order. Not that nature's in any order. I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna probably put another bit of green in here just to mix it up. So we're gonna grab a little bit of the tuft, and we're going to smush this down like I showed in another video, working on some huge miniatures tufts. Smush that down, looks great. We're going to do the same over here, and I'm just going to push this a little bit because the tuft that I've got is a long tuft, so I'm going to just make sure that that's nicely covering it, and we're going to smush this on and smush it in. Move it around a little bit and make sure it adheres nicely onto the base. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our 2 tufts on, 2 flowers from Huge Minis, and now I'm going to finish it off by just putting a little bit of 4-in-1 scatter. Now there's a really good mix in this, and I indicated it right at the start of this video. We've got some wood. Again, you can use some of that wood on here as a finishing touch if you really want to. You can mix it up and have some different colors from the wood that we've got on there if you wanted to. It'd look great. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use some of the static grass and some of the flock that we've got in here, so it comes out. I'm not going to use a flock or a static grass applicator. Just, you know, you don't need to with these. All I'm going to do is just kind of grab a little bit of a higher level, and I'm going to dot my super glue around. I'm going to grab some of the flock and the static grass and just smush it on, and then drop it back off again, and then give it a blow. And then you'll see that there's that static grass and that little bit of flock there just gives you a little bit more of something, which makes it look pretty cool. So I'm going to do the same over here. Just going to dab some super glue on. You can do this with other types of glue, but honestly with these bases, just sort of dabbing this on, tapping it off back into the pot, and giving it a little bit of a blow to get some of that static grass to stand up, and you're golden. So I'm going to do one little bit more just along this ridge by this bit of wood, and then we're probably going to call this good. So I do like the good mix of flock and static grass in these mixes. It just breaks breaks it up a little bit. It breaks it up and gives you just a little bit of something else, like a weed or something like that, in that grass. So super happy with that. It would make fantastic, you know, for like a wood elf type base, or anything else that's kind of in the forest with bits of wood and leaves. It's really good for those sorts of things. So yeah, check out the links that I'm going to put below for all of the products that I've used in this video. Really love the products from Huge Minis, so big shout out to them. And yeah, if you want to like and subscribe to the channel, that would be fantastic. Really appreciate that. And also, you know, check out Huge Minis. Their link to their website will be below, and check out some of these products, and please feel free to message me or comment on the video and let me know how you got on with the products as well, and see if you can kind of come up with bases like these. So thanks ever so much for watching. Appreciate it. Take care. Cheers.